My name is Greg Ryder. I'm the president of the Circumnavigators Club Foundation, and I've held that position for nearly 20 years, a little more than 20 years, over two different tranches. I went to Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, did my circumnavigation in 1971. My research topic was the image of America, the psychological impact of American foreign policy. I would say that the Circumnavigators Club Foundation Around the World Travel Study Grant is the only one of its kind in existence in academia. It doesn't exist. You've got Rhodes scholarships, you've got Fulbrights, you've got Marshalls, but they are all country specific or region specific. They're not globally specific. And so you are going to be participating or competing for a one-of-the-kind grant that enables you to undertake a vision on a global scale. Can't do it anywhere. Doesn't exist, as far as we know, as far as the universities we deal with know. It's very prestigious. If you look back at the list of our grantees, a number of them have grown to great prominence in journalism and in the arts and in business and in academia and in science. It's very prestigious. The schools that offer these grants together with us consider it to be hugely prestigious, as I mentioned earlier. So this is a grant that enables you to do something you can't do anywhere else, and enables you to do it with a group of people, the Circumnavigators Club, all of whom are seasoned, very, very seasoned travelers, have excellent contacts around the world, stand ready to help you in any way, whether it be logistically or making appointments or finding the right place to stay, or outlining it a place, good places for you to visit off the beaten path while you're on your trip. The resources of the Circumnavigator Foundation and the club are tremendous. Young people are going to be old people someday, and along the way, they're going to be running the world. By investing in young people, I think you're investing in, the nursery stock of the future. Just like a gardener invests in nursery stock. Unfortunately, things have become so politically charged and emotionally charged in this country nowadays that a lot of young people simply don't have the opportunity to learn in a truly learning way, and not an emotional way or an agenda focused way about the world. History programs are being cast aside at universities all over this country. The study of foreign cultures is being cast aside in favor of other sorts of agendas. So we need to really invest in young people who understand the importance of the past and the importance that the past is going to have on the future, and not simply abandon the past or try to recast the past in an agenda-driven way. I just can't say how important that is. At the level, I've always enjoyed the camaraderie of people who share the same interests in traveling and talking about traveling, and that's really what the Circumnavigators Club is all about. Starting out with a bunch of sort of idle-rich businessmen way back at the turn of the last century on steamships, making their way around the world gradually, and it's morphed into an organization now of very dynamic world travelers and people who love to travel, who have it in their veins, and write books about it. They make photo projects about it. The Circumnavigators as an organization really consists of a lot of remarkable people. And it's fun to get together with them. It's fun to get together socially with them. I've had a lot of good friends. I've been in this club, as I mentioned, now it's 50 years. And so unfortunately, a lot of my earlier friends in the club have already gone over the horizon, as we say, but there's a continual influx of newer and younger blood and newer and younger ideas in the club. It's a dynamic organization. Club joining is very difficult, having very difficult times nowadays. Younger people don't tend to do it as much as older people did, but we have a good influx of younger people coming into the club. We need a lot more, but I've always been I had an enjoyable time. My wife and I making friends with, keeping friendships with members of the Circumnavigators Club. At the foundation level, it's just gotten in my DNA. You know, I tell you the truth, ever since I became a recipient of this grant, I've been so thankful for the opportunity that it gave me in so many different ways. And I enjoy helping others do the same thing and accomplish the same personal goals that I did. I love working with the grantees. I like following them on their circumnavigations. I like reading their papers when they return. I like mentoring them to the ability I can. I enjoy working with the schools and finding new schools and negotiating new agreements with the schools. I enjoy the company of an extremely talented and dedicated and helpful board of directors. And working with it finds us ways to strengthen and improve our grant program. So it means an awful lot to me. Well, I met Ray actually at my selection interview in the Dean's office at Foreign Service School. Ray and Charlie Blaisdell. Ray was the president of the foundation. Charlie Blaisdell was a remarkable person too. Died at the age of 101 a couple of years ago, nearly 102. They, together with a man named Peter Vakey, who later became an ambassador to several Latin American countries, and at the time was Henry Kissinger's offsider of the State Department, they were on the selection committee. They were the three people. We sat in the dean's office, and I believe, but I'm not certain, that Dean Crow was there as well, although he didn't participate in the questioning. He was an observer. And that's where I met Ray, this remarkably charismatic, bigger than life guy with bigger than life eyebrows and a big bushy head of white hair and a deep booming baritone voice and you know, a gaze that could cut you to the quick or make you warm and glow inside, depending upon the situation. Ray was a bigger than life guy. He was a lifelong friend of mine. We seemed to click from the very start. He was a guy who became a multimillionaire and was a self-made multimillionaire during the Depression. And he retired at the age of 37 in 1937 and spent the rest of his life as a world traveler, as a filmmaker. He made travel films. He narrated travelogues. He was a philanthropist. He was a patron of the arts. He was a tremendous supporter of this grant program and one of its biggest boosters, and probably why it lasted. It got off to as good a start as it did and lasted as long as it did. And he was a mentor to probably, before he died, he was a mentor to probably at least 15 grantees, and by mentor I mean he really took us under his wing. He was brutally, he'd be brutally frank. Ray told you what was on his mind, which is one of the reasons everybody liked him so much. He didn't coddle you, and he could be warm and friendly, but he could also be, you know, incisive, which is why he was able to retire in the middle of the Depression or at the end of the Depression with a lot of money in the bank and the ability to do what his dream was, which was to pursue international travel. So I think that there's nothing more that I can say about Ray. Every one of us who knew him, including the early grant recipients from Georgetown and those that came later while he was still alive, found him to be really the true, well and true father of the whole grant program. And he was one of the founders of the foundation originally in 1964, and he was really the godfather with two other people of the grant program. And it was a hard sell on some of the circumnavigators at that time. They wanted their money to go to eye surgery in India and other places. And Ray said, no, that's fine, but there are plenty of other ways they can give money for that purpose. There are a lot of other foundations and a lot of other means of donations that are dealing with those things. Let's do something that reflects the essence of our organization. Let's send a young person around the world, turn him loose, see how we can come back with. And I say him because at that time it was a him, and then it became a him or her. In my view, I think it's helped expand that vision, both by broadening the base of applicants, including more schools, and by enabling more grants to be made. And that's enabling more grants to be made because we had more schools involved, but also because we sort of strong-armed the schools into making donations to the foundations, which we then use to help support grants to their students. So I remember when Circumnavigator and Coordinator Emeritus Brian Evans, whom you may be familiar with, and I really sat the dean of this Foreign Service School down in 2003 at a Thai restaurant in Georgetown, and told him, listen, you guys have a lot more ability to raise money as a university. You have a huge alumni base, deep pockets there. And we have a lot more ability to administer a grant to send a young person around the world. So why don't you help us with the money, and we'll take over all the work which we have in the past of administering the grant. And that appealed to them. And ever since then, we've made it a condition of universities participating in the program that they make a donation to the foundation, and the foundation makes a grant to a student, their school, and no strings attached. The grant's in our name. We handle all the selection and take all the responsibility for it. So it was win-win. So that I think the original vision of the foundation really has been expanded. Some years we were able, when donations were high enough, we were able to give up to 5 grants in 1 year. And we moved beyond just Northwestern and Georgetown to other schools. We gave 4 grants to Princeton and we giving grants at NYU and University of Arizona. Barrett Honors College was always an excellent source of grantees for us, and we had a good strong chapter out there. So listen, the partnership is just a win-win. It's a win-win for the universities, and it's a win-win for us. These grants have become hugely, hugely prestigious at the universities where they're offered. They use them in marketing materials. They use them in recruitment materials. Students line up, 10 or 20 deep to get involved in signing up for these grants. And they have to be eliminated, of course. We know down to ones that work for the foundation and for the universities. So the partnership has only gotten strengthened, and I think that they'll only be strengthened in the past as we further the scope of the grants. Be flexible. Things always come up that you don't have any idea are going to come up. As they say, stuff happens, and it will happen. So be flexible. Be fast on your feet. Be able to deal with setbacks quickly and decisively, because you can make them go away or you can work your way around them. But if you sit around and whine or text or call mommy or daddy at home or call for help, chances are you're not going to get any further out of whatever contretemps it is than a contretemps it is than you would if you just sat down and thought your way through the process. So be flexible, be creative in dealing with setbacks and opportunities. Grasp opportunities when you can. The second thing is to remember who made your trip possible. Remember that you are only doing what you're doing because members of the Circumnavigators Foundation donated $25, $50, $100, $200, $500 to the foundation in order to enable us to make these grants. So keep in touch with them. The people who made your trip possible are the ones who love to travel themselves. They love to follow other travelers. They love to talk about travel. So communicate, set up a travel blog before you ever leave, and update it frequently. I can't tell you how important it is to communicate with both people at the chapter level who are involved in your selection and with the club as a whole. We'll post those blogs and the addresses for them on our website and on all of our electronic media, and people will pay attention to them. As part of that, remember that you also represent more than just yourself on this trip. You represent the foundation, you're representing your university, and you're representing your country. So don't do things you're going to be ashamed of or that might look stupid if you look back in the future. Now, back in my day, there weren't such things as Instagram or online blogs and that sort of thing, but I can tell you they can come back to haunt you. I was trying to get in touch with some grantees a few years ago from the past. Let me digress for a moment. For some purpose or other, I don't recall the purpose, and I came across one person who shall go unnamed, but I will say he's currently a medical doctor. And I just came across some blog that from about 10 or 15 years ago that this guy had written into, and he said that you won't believe, I talked some old farts in New York into giving me money to do dope all over the world. And that's all I've done. I'm spending the summer going around the world doing dope in as many countries as I can. Well, he was our grantee, and he had no idea. I'm sure he'd be absolutely mortified if he saw his name in that post nowadays. But be careful what you say. Remember who you represent and be a good representative of your country, your school, and of course the circumnavigation is have fun. Don't take your grant seriously, overly seriously, to the point that you don't spend any time learning about the places you're in a context apart from your research. Don't become so focused on the minutiae of your research that you don't go out and have fun. Take weekends off, do R&R, and see the things you've always wanted to see around the world. You may never be back there again. I'll never be back to Afghanistan, I don't think, but and other places. But enjoy yourself and have fun. Take time for other things. Just make sure that your itinerary constitutes an actual circumnavigation. You can't believe the number of final proposals we get that the itinerary doesn't cross all the meridians in one direction. The backtracking is up and downing. There are meridians that aren't crossed. So take the simple step of making sure that it constitutes circumnavigation. The second thing is make sure that the itinerary and each stop on it are relevant to your research project. It's very important, and you should have to defend that. If the selection committee is doing its job, you should have to go through each stop and convince yourself, what does this have to do with the project I'm undertaking and why? And what can I do there to further the goals that I'm trying to achieve with that project? Relevancy, practicality, time-wise and cost-wise. I know I'd like to go to 50 countries, but I can't do that in 90 days. I think Brian Evans and I tried to do almost that many, but it didn't work. I went to more than I should. When you've got 30 days and you're going to 30 countries, just think about it. That's 3 days per country, and that includes trips to and from the airport and transit in between the countries. You're not going to have much time to do what you want to do. Go to enough countries to satisfy your research proposal, but don't probably go to more than would satisfy your research proposal, but don't make it overly complex. Make it practical time-wise and logistics-wise. Make sure the logistics work. How am I going to get to Burundi from Lebanon, or how's it going to work out? And there are plenty of resources available, including our executive director's office that can help with that aspect. Make sure you comply with health and travel advisories issued by the U.S. State Department, by the Foreign Colonial Development Office of the UK, and the travel advisories issued by the governments of the countries you intend to go to. Look at them. Are they 4-star gravity? Are they 3-star gravity? And that's particularly important. As we're coming out of COVID. Now, the whole notion of health comes into the picture much more than it has in the past. So make sure you comply with those travel advisories. You'll probably be rejected if cost is an extremely important aspect of the whole grant process. We like to look at what the forethought that grantees have put into their budgeting process. What have they anticipated? What have they thought about? Are they trying hard to keep within the amount of the grant? Believe it or not, we've done some hard research into that fact, and most grantees from past years and recent years are keeping within the limits of the grant. It's all right to spend your own money, extra money, parents' money, but really the spirit is the grant is here is $9,500 or $10,000, whatever the grant happens to be. Use this to conduct your research and plan accordingly. That means you're not a fat cat businessman traveling on an expense account. You're not staying in 4- and 5-star hotels. If you want to, that's fine, but it's certainly not the spirit of the grant. Try to be resourceful. Show the the selection committees that you are resourceful, and most of all, try to budget very, very, very wisely. We've had young women from prestigious Ivy League schools and from wealthy families who have gone around the world coming back with money left over. They lived in places probably I would never have considered, but you want to be safe and you want to be healthy, but you do want to be frugal. Personally, for me, it means a lot since I was there at the creation. The only two people still alive who were really physically involved with the creation are Dean Peter Crow, and he's in his mid-80s, and myself, who sat before them in the selection. And there's a lot of poignance in my looking back over the last 50 years of the grant program and meeting and getting to know in a lot of different ways, way long before I was an officer director of the foundation, just on a personal level. So many Georgetown students and students of other schools who have gone through the same experience that I did. There's always camaraderie, as you know, and shared experience. And when the exclusivity of that shared experience is quite tight, then I think it's always important to keep in touch with people who you don't have to really explain a lot when you start talking about what you did on your grant, because they know, they understand. When I say the grant's in my DNA, it is in my DNA. I love being a part of helping formulate policy. I look forward to helping to be a part in some way in formulating policy in the future. I think we've had a great run. We've had 140 remarkable people receive this grant, and many of them are participating in this retrospective exercise. So all I can say to you younger members, 50 years goes by awfully fast, so you won't be 21 forever. Carpe diem. You know, even though this grant program has been going on for 50 years and has changed in certain ways and has certainly expanded, if you look at the essence of it, it's really the same that it was in late 1970 when Ray Dinsmore and Lou Kotlow and a few other people got their heads together and said, what can we do to make our giving, charitable giving, more relevant to members of the Circumnavigators Club? That essence really hasn't changed. We're looking for bright young people and we're sending them around the world. And that's exactly what they did 50 years ago. And I think 50 years from now, the same thing is going to be happening. The thing that I would like to do is find a way that we can expand the grant program so that people who really don't have the financial means themselves to travel apart from this. Most of the grantees we select nowadays are already seasoned travelers by the time they get to college. In my day, they weren't. It was really a luxury to be able to hop on a jet and go to Europe or somewhere else. Nowadays, it's not. But believe it or not, there are an awful lot of deserving and smart, and intelligent, bright, enthusiastic people in this country who don't have the opportunity to travel with their parents or their friends or their colleagues. And I think that what we'd like to do, and I'd certainly like to do personally, one of my personal goals before I leave the ability or lose the ability to do it, is expand our grant program to include schools whose names aren't household words, but yet where we can find diamonds in the rough of bright people who otherwise wouldn't have a chance to travel and explore the world and come back having undertaken a project that they were passionate about. And that's what I hope we can do.